How's it going, guys? It's your boy QTZ, and today we're going to be taking a look at the 3 Hisuian starter Pokemon, that being Typhlosion, Decidueye, and Samurott. We're going to take a look at what I think are some of the best builds for these Pokemon and the Pokemon that they like to be partnered with. And to start things off, we'll be starting with Typhlosion. Now, for those of you who don't know, I did put up a community post recently asking basically which one of these 3 starters you guys wanted me to build around. Typhlosion was the winner, so I will hopefully have a video out in the next couple of days showcasing Hisuian Typhlosion and how I think it is best played and the best team for it, basically. So if that's something you're interested in, obviously stick around, hit that subscribe button. But anyway, let's take a look at some of these sets. Now, I think the most stock standard one we're probably going to see on this Pokemon, honestly, is Choice Scarf. Now, the main reason for Choice Scarf on this Pokemon is, well, when you look at it, right, it has a pretty decent attack stat, or special attack stat, sorry. 119 special attack is pretty damn good. You know, you can get it up to about 171 here. If you want to, you just slap a Modest on there. It's pretty damn good. You could even drop it 1 point just because, obviously, that's, you know, that's your kicker and it allows you to put some extra points in bulk. On something like a Choice Scarf set, I do think Modest is the best because you still hit that 147, which a lot of people are trying to hit around that that area of about 140-ish, and then, you know, they're kind of creeping around there just because that's what basically under Tailwind outspeeds Regieleki. You could obviously also take a look at something like a Timid set. Now, Timid also isn't too bad. Obviously, it gives you that little bit of extra speed that allows you to outspeed a couple other mons. But in my opinion, I do think Modest is the best with Choice Scarf because that does put you in a position where you still do outspeed basically all non-boosted Pokemon outside of obviously Regieleki. So you outspeed non-booster bundle. Obviously, you know, there are boosted Paradox ones that will outspeed you, and obviously Regieleki as well. But even in Tailwind Mirrors, you do outspeed a lot of Pokemon. The other set too, in terms of the moves though on this Pokemon, obviously Eruption, for those who don't know, this is probably the best Eruption Pokemon in the format right now. There's also, you know, a couple of other good moves you can run on this. So, in my opinion, on a Choice Scarf set, you're probably looking to run at least 2 to 3 fire moves. It does come down to what you want at the end of the day, but Shadow Ball is obviously your second stab. That's just really good. And then you come down to options like Heat Wave and Overheat. Now, I would personally probably play something like this on a Choice Scarf set. Overheat's there just to help you pick up that KO that maybe, you know, the Heat Wave or the Eruption won't be able to help you with. And Shadow Ball is just your other best stab move. If you didn't want to run Overheat though, there are a couple other options, but this mon really does kind of lack in the special attack department. Obviously, you know, you have Extra Sentry, which isn't bad. You have Focus Blast, you know, Infernal Parade. We'll get into that later. I don't think you want Infernal Parade on a Scarf set, but really the only other option this mon has is probably Terra Blast. And again, on a set like this, you probably want to run Terra Fire just to get the maximum damage out of your Eruption. And because of that, I do like to run Triple Fire because occasionally you might want an Overheat. But some of the other sets as well that you can run. Now, it's pretty similar to what we're just looking at here, and that's just a Choice Spec set. It's honestly basically the exact same. I should probably touch on the ability as well. You probably never want Frisk on this Pokemon just because, like, if you're playing like open team sheet, Frisk is literally useless. You don't need to see what your opponent's got. And because of that, yeah, I do think Frisk is better. But again, it's pretty much the same thing. You want to play this thing with Eruption. You probably want Shadow Ball. You definitely want Shadow Ball, I should say. You probably also definitely want Heat Wave. And then again, the last one's up to you. I like Overheat just because there are some times where you need that Overheat to pick up something that, you know, maybe an Eruption or a Heat Wave wouldn't, especially if you've taken a little bit of chip. On a Choice Spec set though, I do think you want to go Timid just because you do want to, you know, maybe get those Urshifus who are potentially, you know, running something like Adamant, or, you know, they're maybe not running max speed. But again, the set's pretty simple. You just want to go max on this Pokemon. I don't really think this Pokemon ever runs anything other than max out of one specific set that we'll probably take a look at now, and that is an Assault Vest set. Now, I have not tested this, so I don't know how good this would be, but this is a Pokemon where, again, it's not that bad. Like, its bulk is like very average, right? Its defense is pretty bad. Its HP is average, but if you max out the HP, it gets up to 180, which isn't too bad. Its 95 is like a pretty quick speed tier, so you could, you know, quite easily get this up to something like a 140. And then, you know, if you wanted, you just dump the rest here. You could also do something like Timid that allows you to get it down again to like 140. And then you can just dump the rest in special attack. It's honestly up to you how you want to play it. This is, again, not something I've tested too much myself, but I do think this is really good with, you know, say like an Intimidate user on your team if you pair this up with something like Landorus. And the cool thing too about Assault Vest is I do think it actually allows you to run a Terra, and I do think Terra Fairy might be the best one just because this mon's biggest weaknesses right now are probably the Sucker Punch users running around, and even just Urshifu Rapid Strike, just trying to hit it with an Aqua Jet or a Surging Strike, obviously. And on a set like this, you could run the Eruption. I probably wouldn't though on an AV set, honestly. I think you want to look at something like Heat Wave, definitely. Shadow Ball, definitely. I do have Overheat on my AV set, and then the other one, which is its signature move, is Infernal Parade. Now, a cool thing with this, and we'll get into it shortly with, you know, partners and whatnot that this Pokemon likes to run with, but if you do run this like super bulky, you know, you even don't even need this much speed, right? Because one of the partners we'll talk about shortly is our good friend Thunderous, right? You could run this to something like this, you know, run it up to like there even. Just run it to that, just drop Modest, put the rest in there. You know, 127 is still a decent speed tier, especially if, you know, you're paralyzing something. And then it would just allow you to sit there and just spam Infernal Parades with, you know, a really good attack stat there. And again, I like Terra Fairy just because there's a lot of Pokemon right now that are weak to the Fairy move. So having something like that is really, really good. I will probably, on this set though, drop the... Yeah, you probably don't want that. You just want Terra Blast there. But yeah, something like this could be really good if you want to play it more bulky. And then I guess the last set we can look at as well with this Pokemon is just, if you don't want to go like a choice item set, but you still want to run Eruption, your option's Charcoal here. And again, you just want to like go Eruption, you want to go Shadow Ball. The last move's up to you. I'd probably just say like Heat Wave and then you just go Protect. Obviously having Protect on this one's good, especially into things that, you know, have Sucker Punch. You know, if you don't want to say get sniped by an Urshifu or a Chien Pao, you know, having the option to protect the Pokemon is just fantastic. And again, I'd probably run something like this. You go either Timid or Modest. It's up to you, whatever speed tier you want to hit. It's really much of a muchness, but yeah, that 147 can be a bit risky because obviously there are a couple Pokemon that are creeping that mid 140 speed tier. So, you know, you could see Mon start running that 150. 161's pretty safe, but obviously you're missing a bit of power on it. But in terms of Pokemon I'd pair with this, obviously, I think the most important one is Tornadus. Tornadus, for those who don't know, is like the best Tailwind setter in the game. But on top of that, also, he gets some really, really good moves that pair with it. So obviously, you got Tailwind, but then you have this one here, Sunny Day. So obviously, Sunny Day is fantastic if you know, for example, if you lead into, say, a Trick Room lineup, right? Something where, you know, your opponent just doesn't have an answer to, not they don't have an answer. They don't have anything that outspeeds your Typhlosion. You know, maybe you're like a Modest Typhlosion. You look at your opponent's team, they're like hard Trick Room, yeah, and then you can just go Sunny Day, you know, Terrify Eruption turn 1 and just nuke them. Like, I had a game the other day where I just one-shot a Cresselia. Granted, it was a choice spec set, but yeah, in the sun, Terrifier, it's absolutely insane. The other one too that I kind of touched on before is Thunderous. Now, Thunderous is very similar to Torn as it gives you the speed control, right? But it gives it to you in a different way. Rather than doubling your own Pokemon speed, you're obviously halving the enemy speed. And as we said, this does pair fantastically with Infernal Parade. Infernal Parade is really, really good, obviously. The issue is you don't really want to click this on one of the spec sets just because it's too slow, right? You don't want to be this super aggressive, you know, Specs or Scarf, and you sit in there, you know, spamming this low base power move, trying to get that 30% burn yourself. But when you have something like a Thunderous to set you up and just give you 120 base power, you know, just nuke, it's pretty damn good. But other mods as well it likes. It loves Rillaboom. Rillaboom obviously gives it Fake Out. It gives it Grassy Terrain to make sure its HP is as close to full as possible. Obviously healing you up through your Eruptions is always pretty damn nice. Another Pokemon as well that is super, super crucial, actually. I probably should have mentioned this before. Rillaboom is Indeedee. A big reason is, you know, we kind of mentioned before, Sucker Punch is this thing's worst enemy. The last thing your Typhlosion wants to do is eat a Sucker Punch. And Psychic Terrain blocks it. So yeah, it's fantastic. It's also a redirection mod as well, which is fantastic. Again, in a similar situation to Tornadus, where it allows you just to stay alive, right? You know, you can redirect it into you, you know, and it's just fantastic, right? It's a great support mod for keeping those Eruptions up. It also gets Helping Hand too, which is really, really good. Obviously, you know, a Helping Hand Eruption is just as strong as an Eruption in the sun, which is obviously great. And another thing too is it gets Trick Room and Prison, right? Obviously, how you want to run it, you're probably not running these 4 moves together, let's be honest. You're probably dropping something there, but obviously having Trick Room and Prison as well is really good for making sure Typhlosion is the fastest thing. Even if you drop in Prison for something like a Dazzling Gleam, you know, you still have that option of where, you know, say your opponent just has this super hyper offensive team, everything on his team's like base 100s, then you can just set the Trick Room for your Typhlosion and, you know, kind of be the fastest by virtue of being the slowest. So yeah, look, it's pretty good. But yeah, they're just some of the partners I love with it. Obviously, a lot of the top meta mons as well are really good with this. I also like having a second speed control option, something like either Iron Bundle or Regieleki. But yeah, obviously, I'll have a video with the team I've built, hopefully in the next couple of days for you. So if you're interested in that, obviously stick around. But let's jump on to the next one, which is Decidueye. All right, so Decidueye is in a bit of an interesting spot. So I think Typhlosion is probably the best out of all of these, like, if I'm being honest. But Decidueye is also, like, it's not bad. It definitely has a place within the meta. It has a fantastic ability in Scrappy, meaning you can close combat, you know, Ghost types, which does kind of suck into Flutter Mane because it still resists it being a Fairy type. But being immune to the Intimidate is obviously massive for this Pokemon now. In terms of items, there are a couple different ways you can go with this. In my opinion, Assault Vest is probably the best set, especially if you do pair it with something like a Landorus, just because having, you know, pretty decent defensive stats. If you have a look at it, its HP is pretty good. Its defense is like... Its defense is decent, it's nothing crazy, but that special defense stat is actually really nice, especially on a starter, you know, with 1 point in that, and then all of a sudden, you slap that the AV on top of it, that's an extra 58 points of special defense. All of a sudden, this mon becomes insanely hard to break through, especially if you go for something like max attack, and then that will just allow you to, you know, potentially run this up. Again, it depends how you want to play it, because... like, in my opinion, I don't want to say the best way, because I haven't tested it enough, but there are basically two main ways of playing this mon, right? So... I think you want to look at something like Adamant here. Yeah, just get as much out of your attack as you can. And then if you run this to max, you under Tailwind actually do outspeed basically everything that's non-boosted outside of Regieleki. And the reason that's so important is actually its signature move, Triple Arrows. Now, Triple Arrows, as you can see there, it's a high crit rate, which is really good. Has a 50% chance to reduce the enemy's defense by 1. I'm not going to lie, I've clicked this move a lot. I swear it never happens. And also 30% chance to flinch. I also do not think I've ever seen anyone flinch from it. That being said, though, it is still a fantastic signature move, because when it pops off, it is fantastic. It is also really great to pair with Leaf Blade. I do think these are probably two moves that you want on every single set you ever run. And obviously, if you're running something like AV, I think Close Combat as well is just your best last move. And then I guess, so your best last move, your best third move. In terms of the last move, though, this mon, if you have a look here, it does actually have a lot of really good physical options. Brave Bird obviously is fantastic, especially if you want to say run something like Terra Flying, which I probably wouldn't suggest. Knockoff is fantastic. Facade's great if you think you're gonna get burnt. Low Kick can be good, but again, I don't think you want to run triple fighting. But the main ones here are Shadow Sneak and Sucker Punch. Now, on a one so slow, having something like Sucker Punch is fantastic. Even Shadow Sneak as well, if you're really worried about something like Flutter Mane. It obviously can be really good. And then the last, you know, decent moves like Trailblaze isn't bad, again, if you want to run something like this. But U-Turn is also fantastic on AV just for the ability to pivot. I would recommend Sucker Punch, though. I do think it is the best way to play probably this mon, at least if you're running AV. But another cool thing you can do with this mon on an AV set actually is, we'll change this up, we'll go Brave, and we'll just drop this down to 0, and all of a sudden, you are an incredibly slow Pokemon. This mon is, it's in a really interesting speed tier where, again, if you go max speed under Tailwind, you outspeed everything. But if you go min speed under Trick Room, you're also just gonna underspeed everything as long as your opponent isn't running a Trick Room mirror, obviously. But yeah, you can just like run it up like this, do something like that, you know, and this makes this mon incredibly bulky, and also it's pretty damn strong. Again, like running, you know, like running Adamant on this, having 180 attack is pretty damn good. Like, to keep in mind, Flutter Manes normally run to about 187. Granted, they do run a boosting item most of the time, but your attack stat is still relative to Flutter Manes in that regard. And then you're also running like stronger base power moves. Right? These are 90, where Shadow Ball is obviously 80. Yeah, in saying that, though, obviously you do get a Moonblast, which is 95, but you got the close combat for that as well. I guess I'll quickly touch on the Terra too. I do think Fire is probably the best Terra on this mon. You don't want to get burnt. You can't be intimidated, so that's obviously great. It gives you a resistance to Fairy as well. Also a resistance to Fire as well, which is another big weakness. It also does remove your 4x to flying, but again, obviously, you're just going from 4x weak to neutral, but it's still pretty good. You could also run something like Steel, but I don't think Steel's great because you're already weak to Fire, especially with like mons like Heat Train and stuff running around. But yeah, I think this is probably... you almost always want to run these 4 moves in particular. Another set as well, I'll chuck it over top of this just because, again, it's pretty similar, and that's the Banded set. So Banded, again, it's pretty similar, right? You can either run this thing min speed under Trick Room or max speed under Tailwind. And as I said, the cool thing is this mon always gets to run a boosting nature, right? Oh, what's happening here? That's what we're screwing up there. There we go. Oh. Yeah, like this mon, it always gets to run that boosting nature because, so an attack boosting nature, I should be more specific when I say that. You get to run an attack boosting nature because, yeah, you're just quick enough just to outspeed everything you need to. But I do think Choice Banded is pretty good, especially if you want damage. Like having a Banded Triple Arrows is really damn good, especially if you are going first. Firing that off with a 30% chance to flinch, also reduce their defense as well, is fantastic. I guess other sets you can look at on this mod as well. Now, these are not ones I've tested. But you could always go for potentially bulk up sets. So this mon does have access to bulk up, which, obviously boosting your attack stats always great, and getting rid of some of your weaknesses, obviously. Sorry, weaknesses. One of your weakest stats being your defensive stat is always really good. Again, you probably want to run just something like Leaf Blade on this with Triple Arrow, and then from there, it's up to you. This one gets Roost. Obviously, you get Protect, stuff like that. Really damn cool. In terms of an item, probably something like Leftovers could be good. You could also run... what other items could you run? Miracle Seed's not bad as well if you want to fire off some pretty strong Leaf Blades. Again, I'd probably run something like Terra Fire, just so that way your stats don't get dropped. But that's definitely one way of running it. Another way too is... Decidueye actually gets some really interesting moves, right? So it actually gets Tailwind, which is pretty cool. So you can go for like Tailwind Roost and just be like this annoying mon that just sits there and just like clicks like this triple arrow move, and you just like heal up. And you know, Leaf Blade's probably still better, but you could go like Trailblaze as well. Just like be this just like annoying one that kind of sits there, and it's like they can't ignore you, because if they ignore you and they let you start clicking, you know, triple arrows, then it becomes like pretty damn good. But yeah, I think you always want to run Scrappy as well. And again, in terms of the Terra, you can kind of run whatever you want. I do think Fire is best, but anything that just gets rid of the weakness to Fairy is probably your go-to there. So that being Fire and Steel being probably your best two. Poisons... Look, I probably wouldn't go Poison. Poison's interesting. Like, obviously, Poison's a fantastic defensive type, but yeah, I think you go Fire. I definitely do plan on playing around with this mon probably in like a week or two. I definitely want to get a team with Decidueye being like the centerpiece of it, especially like potentially in a hybrid Trick Room team, right? You know, maybe I have something like a Taunt and a Cresselia on the team, and I run just like a Banded, right? Something like this here. Just go Banded. Like at 112, you're still pretty slow if you're up against like obviously another hyper offensive team. Even with that speed investment, you can still just run that other Trick Room and you'll underspeed a lot of things. But I definitely do think this is a really cool mon with a lot of potential. It kind of is a Terra Hog just because it's weak to Fairy, but let's be honest, you know, we see the Urshipus right now tearing left, right, and center, and they're just messing things up. So, me being the noob I am, I just realized I didn't actually run through partners for Decidueye. Obviously, I mentioned it. I think Tornadus is always your best bet with a mon like this. You've got the option for Tailwind. You can also run, like, Rain Dance as well if you don't want to, like, pop your Terra. That way, obviously, you know, you resist some fire moves. As I mentioned too, Cresselia, it loves Cresselia. Cresselia is a fantastic mon just because... you just love, you know, potentially being under Trick Room. It's great. Like, this mon has access to Trick Room. It has access to, you know, Lunar Blessing. It can heal him up, keep him healthy, and just let him sit there, spamming some Choice Bandit or, you know, Assault Vest moves. Also, as I said, he does love Intimidate users. Lando probably being, like, the best one right now. Arcanine also isn't too bad with it as well, because obviously you can spread Burn. Gyarados is also great, again, because, you know, Lando and, so not Lando, Arcanine and Gyarados both pair into, like, a potential Fire, Water, Grass core as well, which is always really, really solid to have. Some other mons as well it likes. I think any offensive mon right now loves Indeedee. Indeedee's ability to, you know, give you Trick Room, give you redirection, stop you from getting priority moved. It's just fantastic. Indeedee's in a really good spot right now. And again, like any mon that you kind of want to build around and you want it to like be your primary source of damage, Indeedee's just fantastic with. But yeah, that's some of the good partners for that as well. I'll probably elaborate a bit more on that in the future once I've done a bit more testing, but I do think Decidueye's in a decent spot right now. Definitely not going to see like super high usage or anything like that, but I definitely think we could see a result or two coming out of it in the near future. And finally, the last one we have here is Samurott, aka Worst Greninja for anyone who saw my poll. I actually did piss a lot of people off saying this thing was Worst Greninja. Obviously, VGC wise, I think this thing's a lot better than Greninja, but I just like Greninja, so yeah, anyone who saw that, I do apologize if I hurt your feelings. But Hisuian Samurott, what does it do? Has this beautiful ability, Sharpness. All slicing moves are powered up by 1.5 times. What moves does it have? Well, it has this new move called Ceaseless Edge, which sets up a layer of spikes. Spikes, obviously... Look, it's not Stealth Rocks. I think, you know, if this and Cleaver swapped its special abilities, then all of a sudden this one would probably be a little bit better. But Spikes are still really solid, especially if you can get up a couple layers of them. So... signature move being Ceaseless Edge, and then Aqua Cutter. It feels like this move was created for Samurott. A high crit move that also gets boosted by Sharpness. I guess I should probably quickly touch on as well. I think that Assault Vest is probably the best move on this mon. So best item on this Pokemon, especially too, because if you have a look at these stats, right, HP is decent, defense average, you know, attack and speed or whatever, like they're both pretty like okay, but its special defense is just bad. Like I really think this mon does need the AV to survive, or it needs to be paired with something like a Ting-Lu. But just in regards to some of its other moves, it gets access to Aqua Jet. Aqua Jet obviously is a fantastic priority move, so I think always slotting that in, especially on something like an AV set, is great. And then in your last slot here, you probably just want something like a Sacred Sword. Sacred Sword obviously also boosted by Sharpness, puts it up to stronger than Close Combat. It puts it up to 135 base power, so that is a pretty damn insane move coming out of Samurott there. Now, in regards to the spread on this mon, there's a couple ways you can go about it. Obviously, because it has a decent speed tier at 85, you could always just run something like this, just go like super bulky and play it with Play it with Tailwind, obviously, you know, do the typical slap it on a on a Tornadoes team and just have it go to work. You know, something like this could be pretty decent, especially, you know, if you've got Tailwind plus Intimidate on the team, just making this thing super bulky. I also do think it could probably function under screens as well. Actually, that might be something I test as well. I might even try that out on my Gudra team, because I definitely think something like this could actually definitely play a decent role on a team like that. But yeah, I think you either look at going this thing like super bulky, or you just look at trying to get this thing, you know, pretty damn quick. Because again, it's not blinding fast, but if you run this thing jolly, like it hits that 150 mark, which is like still pretty decent, right? And it doesn't need insane attack because of sharpness. Like sharpness buffs all these moves, right? You think about it, sharpness makes that, that's an extra 32.5 damage, so it makes it like a 97.5 damage stab move that sets up spikes, which is pretty good. That makes this 105 base power water move with a high crit chance. Obviously we went over Sacred Sword as well. 135 base power is just insane. But I definitely do think two of your better options, like I probably wouldn't run this on AV. If you're gonna run something like this, you probably want to go like Choice Band, Life Orb, something along those lines. I definitely think Banded's like pretty cool actually. Like something like this with Choice Band could be like really good, especially if you just want to spam Ceaseless Edge. You know, you potentially like, you know, get two of them off, get two laser spikes up as well. This mon's done its job. Yeah, if I did have to say, I would personally suggest Assault Vest on this mon. A set similar to what we just had before would be probably the best way to play it. Let me just quickly get that spread back there. Yeah, I definitely think Adamant's the way to go, just because you want to, you know, boost this attack stat that little bit more. And yeah, I'd say that's probably definitely the best set on the mon. In terms of terrors, I do think Terra Water is, funny enough, probably its best terror, right? Obviously, you're keeping the ground and the grass and the electric weakness. But you're obviously getting rid of the weaknesses that come with Dark, the main one being Fairy. I do think Fairy obviously is a crippling weakness to have. Being weak to Flutter Mane, it's not fun. Let's be honest. If you get hit super effectively by Flutter Mane, it's not fun. The Urshifus managed to do it because they're broken, but you know, poor old Samurott here, he needs all the help he can get, and Assault Vest plus Terra definitely helps him out in that regard. In terms of other terrors you could look at potentially running, Terra Fire is always a decent option. Obviously, you know, it gets rid of your grass weakness and your fairy weakness. Also makes you immune to burn, which is always really damn good to have. I would probably say they're like your best bets, right? Like maybe Terra Steel's also decent. Obviously, you know, it helps you with your fairy weakness, and it also helps you with the grass weakness once again. You keep staying weak to fire though is pretty bad. Potentially Terra Fairy actually as well could be decent on this mon. Like obviously the water covers the fairy pretty nicely with like the steel weakness and whatnot. And potentially like a Terra Blast on this mon could also be pretty damn good. Let's take a look at some of the other moves this mon can get though. Now, I don't think it actually gets like many good status moves, right? I don't think it does. Yeah, like literally nothing. We get like SD sub, that's it. Like maybe you could run Taunt on this, but it's just, yeah. Like, I don't think it's worth it. Like, you probably just want to run either 3 attacks Protect, or you just want to run like 4 attacks Banded AV. Also, this mon, I'm pretty sure its physical move pool is pretty bad as well, right? Like, obviously, you know, we spoke about Aqua Cutter, Aqua Jet. You wouldn't run any of these. Ceaseless Edge, obviously, also really good. Drill Run's not bad. I don't know if you would run that, though. Knockoff, like, Stab Knockoff's actually pretty good. Liquidation, why run that when you've got the other one? I mean, Razor Shell could be something. It's slightly more powerful, but I don't think you want to trade 5 damage for 5 accuracy. Sacred Sword is obviously great. Sucker Punch is another fantastic move, actually. You might even be able to consider dropping Sacred Sword for Sucker Punch, like having like dual priority on this one. Dude, actually, that's kind of sick. You play this like bulky AV, you go like Aqua Jet and Sucker Punch. I don't know, mate. Look, that's food for thought. That's something interesting. And X's is another move as well, boosted by Beautiful Sharpness here. Puts it up to like 120 base power, so that's pretty damn good. Does this one get Focus Energy? Ooh. I wonder, like, could you actually just go like could you go like crit on this one? I don't think you actually need the 3 of these, right? I think you only need 2 of them to get a guaranteed crit. Like, is Scope Lens plus Aqua Cutter a guaranteed crit? Does this get anything else that's guaranteed crit? High crit. I feel like I did see something with another high crit. Drill Run was the other one. Okay. Yes, I don't know. Maybe you could run Scope Lens. I probably wouldn't recommend Scope Lens though. But yeah, look, this mod has a couple interesting things it can do. In terms of partners, again, Tornadus. Tornadus is every Pokemon's best friend, especially too because, you know, we touched on it a little bit with Decidueye. But having Rain Dance is fantastic because, you know, you don't want to eat an Aqua Cutter from this thing in the rain. I'll tell you that right now. If that thing's rain boosted off like this attack stat with sharpness, like look out. Like that's a lot of freaking damage. Obviously, you know, we said Tailwind's great. Torn as well is great for Moongus's because, you know, fuck that guy. No one likes that guy. You can potentially run this thing with Pelipper as well. I don't think Pelipper would be like the best partner for it though, but I mean, it's definitely not bad. It helps out with your fighting weakness with the hurricanes and whatnot. Again, you know, we touched on it before. Regieleki and our good friend Iron Bundle are both also like really good options just because they give you that second form of speed control. The one that does interest me though, the more I think about it, is Grimmsnarl. I do think like Grimmsnarl screens, even like Klefki screens, just because like obviously, you know, these two share a dark typing. Klefki screens as well could be pretty good. Like if you set this thing up with like Light Screen and Reflect, all of a sudden that mob becomes pretty damn bulky, man. And again, we talked about Intimidators. Arcanine and Lando are probably the two you'd want to pair with this. Like its defensive stats pretty average. Its HP is pretty nice. Like 90 base defense HP is actually like pretty decent. But yeah, you probably pair this thing with like an Arcanine or like a Landorus. Oh, actually, hold on, dude. This is the source, boys. This here, this is the tech. Oh, that's hold back. We don't want hold back. We want Howl, dude. Howl Arcanine, and you have it to be like 1 point faster than your Hisuian Samurott. Dude, that's kind of fire. You run this thing. Yeah, actually, you're always gonna run faster than that anyway. Yeah, actually, already just straight up faster than that. But yeah, dude, Howl Arcanine, maybe that's the source, boys. Like Howl Arcanine, you get a couple, you know, you get a couple ceaseless edges up. You're rotating your Intimidator, dude. Actually, that's the source. Here's your Fire Water Grass Core, boys. Like that's it there. Shroom as well, dude. I mean, even instead of Shroom as well, like Rillaboom's also really good. Yeah, the juices are flowing here. I actually might build a Samurott team after this. Cause yeah, dude, you run this with like either like Rillaboom or a Moongus, and that's like a pretty nice Fire Water Grass Core actually. I think that could actually do a lot of work in like, especially in like in a balanced team. I definitely might test that out later, boys. I've got the mind going. But anyway, guys, that'll be it for this one. I haven't, as I said, I haven't had that much experience with Samurott in particular. I've done a little bit of testing with Decidueye, and I've done quite a bit of testing with Typhlosion, so I'm pretty confident on those ones. But yeah, if you guys are interested, obviously, let me know down below if you want to see me build around these mons in the near future. As I said, hopefully we'll have a Typhlosion out in the next couple of days. Probably a Decidueye or a Samurott next week, maybe, if I find a team I like with them, because, you know, obviously I don't want to build a half-assed team and just show it to you guys, and, you know, it's just an average team. But anyway, guys, I've been rambling on for almost half an hour at this point, so I'm going to wrap it up here. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.